It's Baseball at the Corner. This is the Michigan in Trouble podcast with your hosts, Alex S. Freeman and Luke Jaconis.
Luke Jaconis, welcome to
Alex
the Michigan
Freeman
in Trouble podcast once again. How you doing?
Hi, buddy. How are you? Good to see you. Nice shirt.
Thank you. Wearing actually, this was a gift to me from my brother-in-law for being in the wedding. It was part of the groomsmen gifts.
Very nice. Very nice. It's a cool gift.
Now,
I wasn't in the wedding, so I didn't get one. But
may note that I normally would ask Luke, how's your week been?
Mm-hmm.
But this week, in preparation for the draft, we are recording this episode significantly earlier than we normally do. So while there has been a lot of news certainly unfolding even between when we recorded the episode that dropped calendarly yesterday, we won't be discussing that news today. In this episode of the show. We're going to stick to draft related topics, but because it is draft day show, we've got a special guest. Luke, who we got?
It's Kevin Costner from the movie Draft Day. Kevin?
Oh, he just dropped off the feed.
No, it's actually it's someone who's much worse than Kevin Costner. Actually, I'm actually a big Kevin Costner fan, so I didn't mean to just put down KC. He's a great actor. Field of Dreams is awesome. No, joining us on the show today is a mutual friend of ours, someone we've both known for quite a few years now. A very good friend of mine. He actually helps kind of host and produce another podcast I run called The Unemployed Guys with another mutual friend of ours. His name is Tom Souls, and he's a huge A's fan. Tom Souls. There he is.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, buddy.
Welcome.
Thank you for
Good to
having
see
me.
you.
Welcome to the show. Apologies that you're an A's fan. And that
no apologies necessary.
My
Lots of World Series titles
to you for
Honestly,
being an athletics fan.
If we're talking, if we're talking baseball as a game of what have you done for me lately, you should be apologizing to us.
Yeah, that's true.
Have a 2019 season like we did. I think somehow we lost more games in 2019 than we have already in 2020.
Somehow
You riddle me that one. Get back to me. But yeah. So yeah, Tom's a big A's fan, as you can't tell by his swag he's got on, and he knows a lot about baseball, and I guess he's a pretty good friend of mine. So yeah, it'll be a good show. I'm glad you could be on here, buddy.
I'm like I said, I'm very happy to be here. Excited to talk some baseball.
Yes.
Now, Tom, I did just finish saying we're not really going to talk about current events in Major League Baseball besides the draft, but I do, since you are an athletics fan, and our last episode we spent a lot of time talking not in great terms about the way the Athletics have been handling the coronavirus situation. And so I would just love to hear your thoughts as an A's fan about how the franchise has been handling themselves.
Yeah. You can't talk in great terms about it because the terms aren't great. It's honest. Honestly, I've run the gamut of emotions from angry, and now it's like mostly just sad and disappointing. I feel really bad for the minor league players that aren't going to be paid anymore, and I feel ashamed about it. It's just it's not really a kind of situation that you can be proud of in any sense of the word. When John Fisher, the majority owner of the A's, is the 7th richest owner in all of baseball and is worth over $2 billion, there's no reason he cannot fork over between $1.1 and $1.2 million to pay the minor league stipend for the rest of the season. It's just inexcusable. I don't understand how he can justify not doing it. Certainly from a business sense, he can argue that, like, why should I do this? But from a human perspective, it's just inexcusable. I don't understand what he's doing. And he's a very private owner. Like, you don't even know what he looks like. And he's owned the team for like 19 or almost 20 years. So Leo Wolf had been a minority owner for years and was the public face of the A's. And then several years ago, John Fisher got tired of him and bought him out and is now the huge majority leader. So, but like he leaves all the public stuff to the president of baseball operations, Dave Cavell, who's awesome. But with this, he only released a statement. He still hasn't talked to the press about it, and it's just not been good in any sense of the word. And I'm hoping that there's enough backlash that he goes back and he reflects on what's going on and changes his mind.
Do we think that as a whole, can we all agree that all these owners should be paying their minor leaguers?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's only going to run them in the ballpark of 1.1 to 1.2, whatever you just said, Tom, a little over $1 million, I think we can all agree they can spare some expense. And this is a point I made on our show this past week, Tom, was that the A's are, definitely a smaller marketed team. But even then, like, it's $1 million. Like, if you can't fork over $1 million, like, you've got bigger problems than just paying your minor league players for the season that they're not going to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you can find that money somewhere.
Yeah, easily. Like, just lift up a couch cushion, probably at at his house. But
maybe
I think that
the money under his mattress.
That might be the spot.
Yeah, it's got the lumpy side of the bed. You don't know.
That I think that we'll definitely get into this as well as we talk about the sort of restructuring of the draft itself. But I mean, you definitely have to think about how a shortened draft with only five rounds and then capped signing bonuses at $20,000. A lot of these guys are going to be looking at, it's going to be hard pressed for the Oakland Athletics to come to a guy and say, "Hey, sign with us instead of going to college."
Oh, absolutely. It's terrible PR for them going into the draft when the majority of your draft picks are going to be undrafted signees, and like you said, I just don't. They'll be able to find guys because the pool of guys is huge, but they're probably not going to be able to get some of the guys they could have otherwise. So I would be shocked if it doesn't hurt them in the post-draft signing period.
Is this, not to rub salt in the wound, so to speak, but is this are the A's the only team right now that have announced that they won't be playing minor leaguers, or have there been other teams too that have come out and said that?
As far as I know, they're the only team that has said we're not doing it full stop. Okay. I know that other teams haven't committed to going past the month of June, but they haven't. But that's like as far as they've gone. They're sort of going on a month-by-month basis, I think.
Gotcha.
But the A's have straight up been like, we're not doing it.
The Tigers, I think I just said, I saw something last night. I think they're going to do it. They're going to continue to pay their minor leaguers.
They are going to do it, and they also haven't cut anybody. Which is, it was interesting because as we were getting ready for that story on last week's show, I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, it's kind of weird that we haven't seen anything from the Tiger press office about this. And so that made me a bit nervous that they were not going to be among the clubs that was saying we're not going to cut anybody, we're not going to pay, but then to see them make that announcement, I was like, okay, they were going about it a little bit more quietly than other teams might have been, and didn't feel the need necessarily to. I think with decent reason, they don't have to advertise that they take care of their guys and that they have a great farm system, because right now they do. So it does make a lot of sense that they maybe don't feel the need to advertise that for those undrafted guys that this is a place that they want to come.
Well, you also have to consider, too, the reason we probably didn't hear anything much from the Tigers press like last week about those cuts was because they were too busy covering Miggy's rap album. That was obviously front page news, and it's understandable that we didn't hear any announcements about the minor leaguers. So
that's true. They didn't want to step on Miggy's debut. That was
exactly. There's got to show some class in the music industry. You got to. So, I think it's good. No offense to you, Tom, but as Alex and I have been kind of saying with the Tigers, you can say what they want about the product they put on the field, but their entire handling of everything with coronavirus, I think, has been spectacular. I've been very impressed with the Ilitch family and ownership and just kind of the front office in general. I've been very, very pleased, and it makes me happy to be a Tiger fan, which after last season is words I didn't think I'd be saying quite so soon. But all jokes aside, have been very, very impressed with how they've handled everything with COVID and whatnot. So 2 thumbs up.
Now, Tom, I asked Luke this question earlier in the podcast, many episodes ago, because he is not from Detroit, and
Right.
so how did he become a Tigers fan? How did you become an Athletics
Yep,
fan?
I get this all the time, so I have this answer well versed. I was born in Wisconsin, raised in Illinois, and somehow I'm an A's fan. But that's because when I was growing up, my dad didn't really force his sports teams, which are vastly different than mine, on us as children. And as a kid, I was a bandwagoner guy. I kind of fell in love with a player and a team that was winning. And so for me, I was born in 1983. And so when I started paying attention to baseball when I was around 6, 7 years old, the A's were really good. They were in the middle of a 3-year run to the World Series. And my favorite player from that team was Ricky Henderson. And the reason he was my favorite player is because as a small stature guy, I, as a baseball player, was never a big power hitter. And Ricky was all about getting on base, stealing bases, and scoring runs. Even though he did hit his fair share of home runs, that was his goal as a leadoff hitter. And so as a kid, I modeled my game around that. I became a leadoff hitter. I became a stolen base, score runs kind of guy because I knew I wasn't going to be able to hit home runs. I was never a big person. So, so I just fell in love with Ricky and the A's as a kid, and I never let go.
I love it. That's a great way to do it. And how has it been? So that's interesting because like one of the reasons that I love the Tigers as much as I do is because of growing up in Michigan and feeling that the Tigers of most of the Detroit teams, not that the other Detroit teams don't do right by the community, but that the Tigers have, in my entire lifetime, always been led in that kind of way that, we are going to be here for our community no matter what. And so I think that's been an extra point of pride for me throughout this, is that has continued to be true. As opposed to,
I'm jealous.
Yeah, as opposed to, certainly it doesn't, help your fandom, but it may not,
right.
But it's not the source of your fandom necessarily. And so it maybe you are able to also be critical of ownership in that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I became actually a Cub fan because my favorite player growing up was Moises Alou, and he would pee on his hands. And as a young child, I loved to pee on my hands. So when I found out there was a major league player doing the same thing I would do every day throughout my youth, I was sold. And that's how I became a Cub fan. Don't mind the hat.
Don't mind the hat or the podcast.
Don't the hat, the podcast, the 15 plus years of fandom, angry F-bomb rants, fool ya. I'm a Cub fan.
Which we're going to hopefully avoid today, but we are going to hit some topics that I know are soft spots for you, Luke. So another reason we have Tom here is Tom can be often referred to as the Luke Whisperer. And
I'm like a handler.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm his special case project. He hangs out with me 3 times a week, and we go to the park and stuff. It's real great stuff. It calms me down.
So, gentlemen, to kind of get us into draft mode and talk, I want to kind of take us a little bit broader picture first and talk about the future of player development as we kind of look at it. So, Major League Baseball, we know, wants to contract the minor leagues. And I think that the coronavirus has assisted them in doing that, in that a lot of these teams will be in financial trouble as well. And so they won't be in a position to fight as exuberantly as they may have otherwise. Also, college players are able to make money now. And so that kind of changes the calculation for some of the guys of going to minor league baseball or to play in college. And so maybe there's, is there less of a need for deep minor leagues? Is the future of player development changing? And are we going to start seeing younger and younger guys making their ways to the bigs?
I would say so. I mean, the first big thing is the college athletes getting paid. I mean, that's huge. I mean, I think for years, people have been kind of not quite understanding why that wasn't happening. And now that it is happening, I do think that you'll see guys wanting to stick around in some ways, but I think you could also see, like you said, Alex, an abundance of just like younger talent, just kind of streamlined to the majors. So, I mean, I don't know. I definitely think we could see it. I don't know about you guys, but that's kind of where I stand on it. And I mean, think about now all these athletes in college, if they do choose to stay, the money they could make in the interim, or they could think, well, I could try to just make more money by going to the majors. So either way, they're going to get paid. You'd have to imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Two sides to this for me. One, I think as far as like seeing younger players come to the major leagues, we've already seen a lot of that in the past couple years. That trend has already started, and I think that will continue as teams realize that the younger guys are more ready for the major leagues at a younger age than previously thought. As far as the college players getting paid, that's a lot of kinks have to be ironed out by the NCAA. They're still, and we all know they're very slow to do that kind of thing. They're very bad with change. And it's not that the players are going to be straight up paid. It's just that college athletes are going to be able to make money off their image and likeness. Now, I don't see that affecting the baseball side very much because college baseball is not marketed and is not nearly as popular as college football or college basketball athletes are. So you're only going to see in my opinion, see a small percentage of college baseball athletes really be able to make money. And certainly that will help them and may affect their decision. But I think on a majority, you're not going to see the money factor become a big issue for college baseball players.
Do you think that, sorry, Alex, do you think when you say likeness, are we talking for that? We're thinking things like jerseys and signing maybe pictures, autographs, things like
Correct.
that.
Exactly like that.
And that's actually a really good point. I'll give you that one there. I didn't think so much in terms of baseball compared to college football, and college basketball is definitely not as popular. I mean, I've said it before, I'm not a big college sports fan, but even I know that football and basketball are much more bigger revenue streams than the baseball side of college sports. That's a really good point. I didn't think about that, but I still feel like they can make some money, but I don't know if it's not going to be as much as football.
For sure. You're going to, the money they're going to be able to make, I think, mostly is local because college baseball teams are mostly followed very locally. They don't really get a lot of national exposure, even though some games are on ESPN. But for the most part, you don't see college baseball on TV until the College World Series, maybe the regional finals. Yeah. So you're going to see kids are going to be able to make money in like local endorsements, because college baseball is real big in the South, especially because they can play year round. And so like kids can maybe make money locally more than they can nationally. And because they're still not going to be able to I don't think they're going to be able to get straight up endorsement money. So like you're not going to have Easton paying kids to use bats, or Nike paying kids to use bats and cleats and stuff like that. Yep. So
good point.
You're going to the money will be much smaller in baseball than it will be in football or basketball.
Yeah, I also think that the contraction of in the coronavirus, we're also seeing a lot of college athletic departments cut their baseball program, which is a different kind of problem that may impact Major League Baseball in a different way. And thinking towards, like, I'm thinking about a guy like Riley Green, who obviously picked going to play baseball as opposed to going to college in that scenario. His calculation may not change, but I also don't know, does Riley Green's player development really change much if instead of staying in West Michigan at the start of this season, he ends up starting at a place like Erie, which obviously was on the list of potential cuts, but starting at a place like Erie or like getting him to Toledo quicker, that then eventually gets him onto the roster maybe more when he's 21, 22 as opposed to 23.
Yeah, they've been saying, who knows? You never really can tell how quickly a guy progresses along the way. But they were saying for Riley, his projected arrival year was like 2022 or 2023, even maybe. So it was going to be a ways away. What's kind of interesting to note, though, now that I'm thinking about this a little bit more, this is why Tom's great to have on the show, because he calms me down and he makes me think clear. He tries to, at least. God bless him. So do you think much even changes then in the grand scheme of things? Like, yeah, baseball players they'll be able to make more money, a little bit more money now off their likeness and everything. Maybe like Tom said, kind of like from a local aspect. But do you think much of their game plan changes, and maybe they're just like, hey, if I can get in right out of high school and get drafted and sign with a club or whatever it might be, let's do it. I mean, I don't know. You can make more money. You would assume make more money going that route, unless you're like a mega superstar baseball player and kind of all the stars align for you. But I don't know. I don't know if much really changes, to be honest with you, now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more.
Yeah, like, so this NCAA deal doesn't affect the kids that get drafted right out of high school at all, because they're skipping right over the college process.
Mm-hmm.
So the big prospects, this doesn't affect at all.
Yeah.
If they're going to sign right out of high school and go into the minor league system, they're going to make far more money right away doing that than they are going, to college.
Yeah.
Now, do you think? So, as I was looking at the allowed money in the free agent class of people that are the undrafted free agents that are going to sign, they're allowed to include things like money for college. Are those guys eligible to play NCAA baseball?
That I don't know for certain. I know. I mean, I think that's going to be a case by case basis too. Like, if kids, want that college experience or feel that they can develop better at a college team than they could playing, rookie ball or low A ball for, X team, whatever. That's going to be their decision to make, and it's going to be a case by case basis.
Yeah, I also know that, like, when I was 17, 18 years old, I was not necessarily, I was thinking about my dreams. I was not necessarily thinking about, like, oh, I'm going to be an 8th round MLB pick. Maybe I should go to college, develop more in a college program, and also have a degree when I eventually get cut from high A ball.
Right.
Yeah, and so but that, maybe there is something that Major League Baseball in their player development could consider, like, finding that way. Now they won't, because it's not really in necessarily like ownership's interest to figure that process out for the guys. But it could be in the NCAA's interest if they want to get some more talent to play college baseball.
Right. And if they want to, this is a whole nother aspect, but if they want to care about young people's education too, like they like to claim they do.
Yeah.
The other factor in this is, geographics is, like, let's say a kid from California gets drafted by the Tigers and they want to send him to Erie. If he's 17, 18 years old, does he want to go there right away? Or does he want to go to college somewhere more locally and then, get into the system a year or two later?
He could always commute. Depends on how much he wants to play.
That Erie to LA line.
Yeah, it's just a quick, you hop on,
Erie LA
use your
Railroad.
CTA points, and you just scan your card and you're there, and I don't know.
Hey, Southwest
3
Airlines
days.
get 2 bags free. It'd be
Hey, Frontier Airlines, he can fly there every day for like $25. It won't be the most comfortable flight of his life, but he'll get there.
Yeah, he'll be ready to walk off the plane and play for sure after a Frontier flight.
I don't think he'll be able to walk off the plane, but to each their own.
Now, Tom, I don't know what your, this is a baseball podcast. We invite you to talk about baseball, but I'm going to ask you about the hockey draft and the way that draft works. Now, my sense of hockey, I don't know this for a fact, but it was that you could be drafted. They retain your rights while you play in college. Is that how that process works?
Yes. So much like my baseball fandom, my hockey fandom is... My favorite team is the Colorado Avalanche, because when I started playing hockey in the mid-'90s, the Avs were really good, won the cup. And so I stuck with them ever since.
As 96. A Red Wings fan from the 90s as well.
Oh, yeah, that was a great rivalry. That was a great rivalry. That's the worst thing. We're not going to keep talking about hockey, but that was the worst thing about the Red Wings being moved back to the East. That cut that rivalry out. But, so last year, or 2 years ago now, the Colorado Avs drafted a defenseman out of Boston that played at Boston University, and he went back for his junior year before he came to the Avalanche. So they can do that, and college kids often do. a lot of the good Canadian kids, because like Canada's a little different. They do have colleges, but most of their good kids get drafted right out of high school or their senior league, which kind of goes a year or two past high school, and then they'll be moved into the minor league system from there.
And so, I posed the question because I wonder if that may be the way we may be heading with baseball, depending on these minor league teams. Now, it's interesting too because we've talked many times about these minor league teams being central to the economics of a lot of these small towns. That there's great tradition in those minor league franchises, and perhaps that is also a void as they talk about potentially shifting the college baseball season. That they may be looking to start filling some of those baseball programs.
Yeah, the cutting of the minor league teams is going to help college baseball because a lot of those fringe guys who get stuck in A ball are still really good players for college, level. So they're going to go to college now. They're not going to stay in, Burlington, Iowa A ball because, there's not going to be a team there. So they're going to go to college and improve some college teams and then maybe get drafted higher than, if they improve through college, maybe that helps them. Whereas if they weren't improving in a team's low A ball system.
Yeah,
I think you'll see us. I think that's a good point. I think you'll see us definitely a spike in a lot of those lower class guys. The college offer will definitely become more enticing to them.
Absolutely.
Now it's kind of like this. It's kind of your options are pretty much dwindled. With them
it's like if they want to play
systems.
Baseball.
Yeah,
because you can go play in college, and sure, you're not going to be making money really, but you're at least going to be playing baseball where you weren't going to be playing baseball before.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't help the guys that were already in the minor leagues and have left. Have already left college or already been drafted.
Yeah.
It doesn't help them, but future guys coming out of high school, it will help.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's shift our conversation to this particular draft class, and let's, Tigers on the clock. We're the number 1 draft pick.
We are.
Yeah, you haven't caught that. You haven't caught that in any of the news. And also, we're gonna take Spencer Torkelson. I don't know if you've read that.
I thought with our performance in 2019, we weren't allowed to go to the draft. They just said, "Good God, don't let them in."
If there was
Detroit Tigers ended up on that cut list of minor league teams.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll have to see. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're getting a guy named Spencer. I know that. I don't know much, but I know that. I can read those articles.
Just from the outside looking in, I would be shocked if you don't pick Spencer Torkelson.
Yeah.
The only other
reasons.
Yeah, go ahead.
One, great name. Great name.
You like the name?
I think it's hilarious. I think
the last name I like the name Spencer. I can easily see me calling him Spence or Torque, but if you say Torkelson, kind of sounds a little nerdy.
Sure, but
for whatever reason, it reminds me of Minkus.
The sum of the whole of the parts is great, but also he's the kind of player they need.
Oh yeah.
From what I know of the Tiger system, it's heavy on pitching right now, and they need impact bats, and he's going to be that. Plus, Miggy's going to be retiring in a few years, and he plays first. Torkelson plays first base. He's going to be a natural replacement, hopefully, in 3 to 4 years. I think he's the obvious pick for them, assuming, money-wise, that all works out.
Yeah, I mean, Tom is right, although Miggy will never retire. Just like the Goonies, Miggy will never die. So watch it.
But age 74.
He'll be DHing and rapping. I guarantee that's the Luke Chaconis guarantee. It is true. I mean, the minor league system is front loaded with pitching, which is good, because we've seen in recent seasons how just abysmal the pitching has been. So that is a good sign of hopefully progress in the future. But on the offensive side of things, definitely could use some help. I think Riley Green is definitely a very, very good kind of foot in the door. Guys also have got guys like Nick Quintana, Derek Hill, who we'll get to in a little bit. And so having a guy like Torkelson. I'm going to call him Torque, I think. I don't know. I got to think what nickname I'm going to call him. Spencer Torque.
Maybe we should ask him.
Yeah.
Nah.
Or does he get a say in that? No.
Spencer?
We're gonna hold another draft for his nickname. It's the
Yeah. We can. That'll be good. He'll be on the clock. Yeah, no, but it is. I mean, he's going to be good. I imagine for a first baseman, probably got some mighty good pop in that bat, and maybe I don't know. Maybe could you imagine? Is there ever a scenario, Alex? You think, or Tom? Maybe you could answer this. I think there's like maybe 4 more years left on Miggy's contract. I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head. Is there ever a scenario where we see Miggy, Spencer Torkelson, and Riley Green in the same lineup? A lot of things have to be good. It mainly would rely on Miggy's health. Let's start there, and hoping these guys get to the majors, no problem.
I think that there is potentially a scenario where that happens in the world where they have Miggy sign a 1-year deal at the end of this one to be there as a DH, but because our number 1 draft pick Torque is I don't like that.
Yeah. Come on, we got Torque coming up to the bat.
What about Torquey?
Torque? Ooh, I like Torquey.
Yeah.
I like
okay.
Torque.
Yeah. So that Torquey is set to join the roster that season, and they want Miggy there as a seasoned veteran presence.
Yeah.
To help in the adjustment so that Torquey doesn't have to be the everyday first baseman necessarily, and so those 1 or 2 games every now and then where you put Miggy in the field, that might be the situation where you can kind of develop him up that way so that he can really step into that first base role as he is. Because I think you guys said it all right. Like Torkelson makes the most sense because of all those reasons that he should kind of move his way through the system on the sort of the exact same timeline that Miguel Cabrera will be preparing to retire, and it will fill that need, assuming he comes all the way up.
2 things.
I'm going to put the percent of this happening around 10%.
That's fair.
That's just an outsider perspective.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I definitely think it's more of a long shot than like a guarantee, no doubt about it. But 2 things. 1, every time you say Torquey, it reminds me of Forky from Toy Story 4.
Oh, that's why I went with it.
So we're going to have to reevaluate the nickname. Number 2, I do agree, Alex.
Well, let's see how his first few years in the minor league go. Maybe he is like Torquey. Maybe he is trash.
Oh, yeah. Like, yeah. I'm trash. God, please don't, knock on wood, please don't say that. I can't take any more heartbreaks with this team. 2, though, I think you make a really good point, kind of, if they were to bring Miggy back for like that 1 year, almost kind of have him around like how Ryan Zimmerman was around for the Nats last year. I mean, Ryan Zimmerman obviously contributed, and I think he's even back with the Nats again this year on a 1-year deal, if I'm not mistaken. But I could see a scenario like that. I mean, again, we've talked about it a lot. What's the one thing I think we have been noticing in baseball throughout all this with these negotiations that is lacking? It's loyalty. Be very loyal to Tigers to keep Miggy around, especially if they're going for it in a scenario, 3 or 4 years down the road where we've kind of said that might be our quote unquote window thanks to rebuilding. So I don't know. I could see a scenario where that maybe is like, it's almost like a gimme of out of respect that have Miggy there. And I mean, of course you want to see Miggy win. I mean, I don't care what player, even if it's a player on the Yankees, a career Yankees player, if he won his entire career, if Aaron Judge won his entire career without winning a World Series, but he stayed a Yankee the whole time, I would like to see him win once, because I like when players do that.
Yeah, and I think that, like, when I think about like a guy like Miggy too, if you look at that as the window, and the Illiches have said they're ready to spend when the time is right. But you think about maybe some of Miggy's money on that 1-year deal. He's gotten paid on this massive deal. Miggy has gotten his money, and so they sign him on that 1-year deal that he takes a quote unquote pay cut, to free up a little bit more money for them to go get whatever pieces they feel like they need to supplement these young guys as they come into the organization.
And I actually think the best chance you guys have of seeing these guys play together is because Torkelson is a college player. He's theoretically slightly closer to the majors than a high school player is. That if he progresses super well over the next 2 years, you could see him come up at the end of Miggy's current contract, and so that they don't have to pay Miggy another year of,
because from everything I've been kind of reading, and you've been looking at like the years of like Riley Green's projected arrival date and like the end of Miggy's career. I think there's like potential that right now that they overlap in like Miggy's last year to Riley Green's first year. So if even that happens, cool. It'd be great to see those guys, hitting a lineup together, having Torkey. Torkey would really have to kill it in the minor leagues to kind of catch up to Green. But, stranger things have happened. Also, I think, too, to Miggy's credit, he is 100% a gamer. I don't think it's out of the question at all that if Detroit's competing for a World Series championship 3, 4, maybe even 5 years down the road, if Detroit wants to have him back, I could easily see him wanting to hang around. I mean, I could be wrong. We have to also see how his body holds up, too. I mean, yeah, he had a hell of a spring training that from what we saw those first few weeks, but that was only 2 to 3 weeks. It's noted that the past couple of years have taken an extreme toll on his body. I still think he can be 100% productive in the lineup. I've said that before, and I'm going to keep saying it, but productive to the point where he can last another 5+ years, maybe. I don't know. We got to see.
Yeah, it depends, and it really does depend on how frequently they're able to give him rest from playing in the field, and extending his life as a player in that way. I think one
full-time DHing will help.
And we've definitely said
absolutely
on the show before that like the one of the silver linings of this situation is that this is a season where Miguel Cabrera is not getting 162 games of wear and tear on his body. Now he is, he's still aging during this time. He's not like becoming a younger man, but the way in which he came into shape in spring training, and if we think that it's likely that when he's not in the studio dropping a beat, that he is continuing that trend along those lines, and so he looked 5 years younger when he came into spring training this year.
Legit, he did. I mean, I know it's easy for us to be like, man, he looked good, but that man looked good. He was in the best shape I'd seen him in years. What's going to be hilarious for this entire conversation is when the draft happens and the Tigers don't draft Spencer Torkelson, and this last 15 minutes will all have been for nothing.
The only other player I've seen mock them is that Asa Lacy kid, the pitcher.
Yeah, no, he is 100%. I've already bought the jersey, so I have bought numerous jerseys, and I am selling them for a hefty price out of the trunk of my car in the parking lot of an Applebee's. So
make sure they say Torquay on the back.
Oh, is it Torque? Oh, I spelled the name wrong. Oops. They're good. They're good. Just use them, man. They're good. These are legit.
That's real. So we've alluded to it a little bit, that the past few years the Tigers have drafted pitcher heavy. Last year they seemed to attempted to correct that with their first 8 of their first 10 picks being position players. And so what do we think about what the Tigers draft strategy should be heading into this season?
I'm going to say hitting. I think keep loading up on hitters. I wish there's a way you could just draft, be like, hey, and if they're going to take arms, I want them to be bullpen arms. I mean, I know it's a little bit more. I mean, pitchers are pitchers, so I mean, you can mold them into starters, you can mold them into relievers, or your closer. It is up to your discretion. So if they're going to do anything like that, I hope if they're going to have any bit of a pitching mindset, I hope that mindset is geared towards the bullpen. Because let me tell you something, this bullpen was, and always possibly will be garbage. As long as I have been a Detroit Tiger fan, and I am not kidding when I say this, I cannot think of a season where the bullpen was phenomenal. Even in the years of 2006 and 2012, when they went to the World Series, and 2011 and 2013, when they were competing, pretty consistently in the division in the playoffs, the thing that always hindered them most was bullpen. So we need to correct the bullpen. I tweet it out every year. I haven't been doing it so much this year because there's much bigger things going on in the world right now. But have that mindset just kind of in the back of their head. That not even in the back of their head. That needs to be front of the head, front of the mindset, frontal lobe. If they're going to go after pitching, it needs to be in regards to the bullpen. However, that little rant aside, it's going to be all hitters. I mean, it has to be.
Yeah, I would agree. With only 5 rounds, it really has to. You got to focus it that way. But then I would hope that if there had been 10 rounds, as we look at these undrafted free agent guys, you can pick up some pretty nice value with guys that you don't track that are strong pitchers that you don't track to be starters
Mhm.
necessarily, and so you can pick up that value on a bunch of guys and develop hopefully a really nice relief core.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have Al Avila making
Yeah.
many of these decisions, so let's talk now about Al Avila's track record and Avila's work as the general manager of these Detroit Tigers. Luke, do you have any thoughts?
Okay, I'm going to surprise everybody here because I'm a surprising guy. I'm going to expose the truth here. I'm going to expose myself. Just kidding. That's not going to happen. Relax, everybody. In regards to Avila's past,
What's the stream? If you expose.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. My bad. My apologies. I think that looking at his past few years, granted, it's hard to kind of say the success of his past few years because we haven't seen any of these guys come to the majors yet and fully develop. But on paper, I think Al Avila, in terms of drafting, has done a very good to great job. I just said it not too long ago. There is a lot of issues on the pitching side for baseball with the Tigers. He went out and he's gotten the guys that were the big names that will hopefully come. They'll finish their progression in the minor leagues, which we thought, prior to coronavirus, we would definitely see them arriving sometime in Detroit this year. Now, if we even have a season, it might be 50 games. Who knows? I don't know if that's going to go down. So there's a good possibility we don't see them until 2021. But we got the guys like Mize, Manning, Faedo, Skubal. Those are some big, big arms. And I have to give him props there because he went out and got big arms to try to rebuild the pitching rotation from the ashes. I mean, when you look at the rotation that was at a point in time, Verlander, Scherzer, Porcello, David Price was in there, at a moment in time. It's not easy to realize that, you didn't get the win with those guys on your roster. So I'm not saying that Mize and Manning and all these new cats are going to be, the next Verlander and Scherzer and everyone I just mentioned, but I definitely think it's as good as it can get. And I like the Riley Green move. I do. So I don't know. In terms of drafting, I think he's done as best as he could. Now, granted, the Tigers have been really crappy the last couple of years. So let's not pretend like a lot of these big early draft signings have been like, whoa, I didn't see this coming because they've been so crappy. It's almost like that the options are just there on the table waiting for them. They were the worst team in baseball in last year in 2019, and then they were also the worst team in baseball in, I believe, was it 2017? Because that was the year 2018, they drafted Casey Mize.
Mm-hmm.
So it had to be 2017, if I'm not mistaken, because Casey Mize was a number one overall pick. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, when you have that at your disposal, it's not like you're like, any decision you make is going to be a good decision. So I mean, in terms of the draft, I don't have a ton of complaints. Now, granted, watch, these guys are all going to get up here and they're going to suck, and then we'll have to come back, the three of us, 2 to 3 years down the road, and I'll retract all these statements. But I don't anticipate them to suck. I think they're going to be very good and career Tigers. So yeah, in terms of the draft, I'm not that worried because there's not really a lot of room for him to screw up. Maybe in later picks, but at least for those first couple of rounds early on and those big picks.
Yeah, I would have to agree that Al Avila's looking, going back and looking at the last 4 drafts, it's not, they're not terrible. They're not terrible drafts. I think that he did really nice job. But you did kind of hit the nail on the head. The team's been awful.
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy to make picks in the top 10. Like you're right. You can't, like, it's hard to go wrong in the top 10. You can, and thankfully looking at these picks, I don't think he did.
No.
But you definitely, you can't go wrong in the top 10 because the top 10 guys of, when you get your pick of the top 10 of thousands of baseball players, you can probably identify the one that's good.
It's not like he was the first round pick in a fantasy football draft and he took a kicker. He didn't pull that off as far as we know. I mean, unless any of these guys like Mize, Manning, or Green are absolute busts, which I don't anticipate them to be, he did a good job. But then again, like we just said, it's hard to screw up when you have the first round pick 2 out of the last, I think, 4 years or whatever it's been. So we'll see. But yeah.
Tom, outsider's perspective on Al Avila and his drafting?
I mean, honestly, I don't know that much about it other than Casey Mize and Riley Green, and those picks. I don't think you can argue about at all. I think they were the right call at the time, and retroactively still are the right call. So, and they've panned out. They seem to have progressed well so far. So, yeah, general managing in baseball is a little different than the other sports because of the minor league system compared to the other sports. You're drafting so far into the future, or trying to draft for so far into the future. It's much different compared to other sports where you're more or less drafting for help right away. And so you can judge Al obviously very harshly for the performance on the field for the last couple of years because he is directly responsible for that. But as far as his drafts, you've really yet to see the people he has drafted on the major league field. So you can't properly judge him on that until you do see Green and Mize and Faedo and those other guys hit the major league field.
Yeah, in researching for the show, you look at, because Al was not an outside hire when when he became the GM. He was from within the organization, and so it to a certain extent there is like some history with him there, but there is a pretty long history in terms of like draft classes, like going back to 2013. Things you see written in 2013. Tigers were one of the best development organizations for the past decade in terms of like drafting correctly and guys making it to the majors and hitting it big. So under Dombrowski, they were still seeing that. And I think that if you look at the prospects that are in the system right now, that we should be very proud of the system. Now, obviously, in 12, 13, we blew up the farm system to go all in to try and to win a World Series there. But hopefully the franchise has learned from that mistake and that we don't go that route. Now, the rebuilding talk does make you worry that might be what they're considering.
Yeah, you said my thoughts on Al Avila. I can give you my other thoughts outside of the draft. How much time do you got? My issues are kind of what Tom alluded to with Al Avila, are his product he puts on the field, and I think he's a horrible leader. Those are my biggest issues with Al Avila, and I think he is followed like a blind sheep, or whatever, in terms of the whole rebuilding thing. I gave my thoughts on that kind of last week, but yeah, I let's not really go down that rabbit hole today, but because this is a draft episode, but yeah, he's done fine. He's done fine. And overall the Tigers, yeah, they've usually drafted fairly successful players. Then along the way they get traded, or they just must not just pan out, or they have like one or two of those guys kind of flourish while the other team is just not there, and those guys get shipped off, and then we're back at square one. So we'll see.
In sort of that regard, I threw in the show notes for you guys to look at and for us to talk about. Bleacher Report put out late round draft historical rankings and first round draft historical rankings on both lists. Your Detroit Tigers 15th, right smack there in the middle. So what does that feel right as we look at the Tigers franchise, that like they're not awful, they've not been great, every now and then it hits?
Yeah, honestly, it's like it's smack dab in the middle. It's like yeah, I can see it. There's been years where it's like, oh, this is pretty fun, and there's been years where it's like, I'm never going to watch baseball ever again. But yeah, no, I think literally 15 right in the middle. Yeah, I can go with it. I rock with it.
I didn't look on that list where the Athletics were, Tom.
Yeah, I was just trying to pull it up right now to double check it, but it wasn't loading. So the moment has passed.
The moment has passed.
And honestly, it doesn't matter because the A's make so many trades that their guys come from all over the place outside of the organization. So a lot of the guys they draft don't ever stay with the team.
Yeah, that's interesting because I the Tigers have transitioned more to what feels like we're trying to actually develop guys to be Tigers as opposed to guys to be trade fodder. But the Athletics do build their team differently that way, and part of it comes from they find that value that they can parlay into other value, in the true sense of Moneyball. But that's an interesting. I don't track minor league baseball in terms of like depth into the prospects like some people do, but I imagine like cheering for a franchise like the Oakland Athletics, that's even harder to do because you have no idea where your guys are coming from.
Yeah, you certainly don't want to become too attached to anybody because he's not going to be with the team for long. It's almost guaranteed. Now, they've stated in the last couple of years that they're trying to get away from that they don't want to keep being that way, that they want to keep, not everybody, of course, because you're never going to keep everybody, but there's a core group of guys that they are actively trying to keep, or at least saying they're actively trying to keep. So, and the first one hits free agency after this year, so we'll see if that happens, and that's Marcus Semien. So they don't have to worry about the other guys for like 2 more years, so we'll see if that happens or not, but it's definitely a thing in the past where it's great when the guys are great, but don't buy their jersey if you plan on rooting for them for your team for the next several years, because it's just not going to happen. That's not how it works in Oakland.
Yeah, if there was a guy like Riley Green in the Oakland organization, you would not necessarily be like, oh yeah, can't wait till he's an Athletic. You'd be like, can't wait till he's a Ranger.
Yeah. I mean, you can hope. There's always hope, but don't just hope. Yeah. Be prepared.
Tom, if you had to, whose jersey would you buy right now for the A's?
Marcus Semien is my current favorite A's player. He's not the best player on the A's. Matt Chapman is the best player on the A's, but Marcus Semien is my favorite player. I played shortstop in high school. He's a shortstop, and I particularly love him because he was not good when they got him, in the sense that he was always an average hitter, but he was very bad defensively. And, at a premium defensive position like shortstop, defense is important. So, but he has worked so hard over the last couple of years to improve his defense. And he was a finalist for the Gold Glove last year. So I just really appreciate how hard he's worked and how much he has improved. And he was also a finalist for the MVP last year. So he's just been great.
They got him from the White Sox, right?
Correct. In the Jeff Samardzija trade.
Yeah, that's what I thought. They came up with the White Sox. Yeah.
Yep.
Alex, who would you get? If you had to get a jersey right now for the Tigers, who would you get? Or if there's an A's player in particular you're fond of that you would like to get the jersey, by all means, the floor is yours.
Current roster?
Yeah, let's go current.
I mean, I don't have a jersey. So the easy answer is I would get a Miguel Cabrera jersey. That's probably where I'd start.
I don't have one. I do have a Miguel Cabrera jersey. I do. It's a Florida Marlins Miguel Cabrera jersey.
I was going to ask you, Luke, who from our minor league system would you hope to get a Tigers jersey of?
Honestly, I'm buying into the hype for Casey Mize. I think I'd go Mize. Although I have a feeling. I have an inkling. Casey Mize is obviously, like, when you mention like Mize, Manning, Faedo, Skubal, Mize, I feel like, is always the first name. He's the big guy because he was the first round pick pretty much. I have a feeling I'm going to really dig Tarek Skubal because that is a cool name.
That
Tarek
is
Skubal.
That's a good name.
I don't have a hunch. I just have a feeling I'm going to really become a big fan of his.
Spencer Torkelson sounds like the actor you get when you can't get Tarek Skubal.
Spencer Torkelson sounds like he might have been bullied by Tarek Skubal in high school. I will have to check into that. But if I did do a current one though, for Tigers, I wouldn't even think about it. I get Matt Boyd. I hope they extend him because I will buy a Matt Boyd jersey like that. And he's a pretty solid pitcher. He's definitely got some things to work on. He gives up far too many home runs, but he is a strikeout machine. But it's just not only for the player that he is, but the person that he is and his charitable work that he does with Kingdom Home, his organization that him and his wife run. I think he is a top-notch guy. I'm a huge fan of Matt Boyd. And if and when he is extended, I will buy his jersey right away.
Yeah, I think that's all very, very well said. I would also say that, like, of the minor league guys, I would love to have a Riley Green jersey.
Yep.
I might go. Next time I'm in Michigan, I may drive over to West Michigan and get a Riley Green West Michigan Whitecaps jersey. I'm sure they
Ooh,
got
that'd
them.
be very vintage.
Minor league teams have some of the coolest jerseys and hats.
Yeah,
hmm
very cool stuff that they do. I mean, they have to. They're
Yeah.
you gotta get the people excited
Exactly.
somehow.
Yeah.
Matt Chapman just came up. So do we want to talk about this 2014 do-over that the Tigers may want to?
This is one how he said they've done pretty good with the draft. I mean, obviously, again, drafting is kind of like a crapshoot. You're not really sure how things are going to pan out. This is one that this is not a good look. This is not a good look.
Where in 2014, the Detroit Tigers drafted Derek Hill, when 2 picks later, Matt Chapman would be drafted. So, Luke, what's Derek Hill doing?
I don't know. I mean, we've been hearing about him for years. I feel like honestly, probably, yeah. You said that was the 2014 draft or 2013? Yeah. So yeah, I can say the word years. It's been years we've been hearing about Derek Hill. He's just kind of out there. I feel like Derek Hill and Daz Cameron are just kind of like those outfielders in the organization where it's just kind of like they're coming. I think they're going to make it. Yeah, I think they're coming.
Taking the scenic route.
Yeah, they're taking their time. I got
Erie's a nice city.
Yeah, why not? But yeah, obviously you can't go back to 2014 and predict. Who knows? Maybe once Derek Hill gets here, he's a superstar. Maybe he's better than Matt Chapman. Right now, though, I don't think I'm shooting myself in the foot here when I say that Matt Chapman would have been the better pick, but only time will tell. And nothing against Derek Hill from what I saw in spring training. Seems good, fast. He's got good speed. So we just got to hope he gets it together and maybe gets to the majors at some point because it'd be cool. He'll get there.
I'm less confident.
Yeah.
that may be the biggest bust in recent years.
Yeah, you're right, but he'll get there.
Could be worse. You could draft a guy who is now in the first round that is now the starting quarterback for the Arizona Football Cardinals.
That's right.
Wow, the A's literally will trade anybody to anybody. They said, "Yeah, we'll make a trade with the Cardinals." They're like, "We're the Arizona Cardinals."
They read the wrong team. Wasn't it in Moneyball? They traded or Billy Beane made a trade where so they could get free soda in the locker room or something like that. Wasn't that the big thing?
Yeah, I mean,
paid for by
Dave Dombrowski.
Yeah,
right. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
I want my guys to have
wasn't it the trade for Carlos Pena?
I believe so.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Hey, when you're in Oakland, you got to scrounge up everything you can get.
Hey, so since you're here, and we're talking about the A's. I know we got to wrap up here in a second. We have pretty similar baseball ideologies. I'd like to think you and I'm sure we differ on some things. Obviously, I love the rebuild. You hate it. That's very well noted. But can we agree on this one fact? The Oakland A's Coliseum is a dump.
Absolutely. It's the worst
the hell
in
is
baseball.
going on over there? What is going on? Honestly,
it's a mess.
For a new stadium?
Yeah, so they've been on a new stadium campaign, I guess you could call it, for years and years.
Uh-huh.
They ran into several roadblocks along the way. They wanted to build one in San Jose, but because of territorial rights by MLB, the Giants own the area of fandom around San Jose, so they couldn't build there. And then they finally decided to build in Oakland, and they found a site they liked, but it was right next to a community college, and the community college didn't want it, so they blocked it. And now they've gone to what is now the third option, and they're going to try and build by the ocean side in like a dock area called Howard Terminal. And things have been going well, but the coronavirus thing has thrown a wrench in it because now they're losing money, obviously, with there not being a season, and with a team that, despite having a rich owner, they are building the stadium with their own funds. They're not using taxpayer money. So that's part of it, which is great because taxpayer funding stadiums are a giant scam, which is a subject we can talk about another day. But they're going about it the right way, and they're paying for it with their own money. Now, with a year of lost revenue, essentially, who knows? Their target date was to have it built for opening day of 2023, which is coincidentally the year after, or would be the opening day right after the offseason where Matt Chapman and Matt Olson will hit free agency. So they were hoping to have that stadium to be able to create a financial windfall to help pay for their contracts. Whether or not that's going to happen now, well, we don't know. So, but they have crossed some bridges, legal bridges, in terms of getting the stadium approved. We're not there yet, and there certainly hasn't been a groundbreaking or anything, but still hopeful, yet reserved, because this is something that's been going on far longer than any rebuild has. So
that's fair. The one thing, and now with the Raiders in Vegas, right?
Right.
So now it's just the Coliseum is solely owned to those.
Right, and it's the last
days.
dual sports stadium in sports.
Yeah.
So, it was built for baseball, but it wasn't really built for baseball. It was built for football. And it's a trash heap. Sewage backs up in the locker rooms when it rains really bad, so that's great. Everybody loves that smell. And it's just, the fans don't sit super close to the field because of the dimensions. It's not, they have that big ugly tower in center field that's called Mount Davis, named after the old Raiders owner Al Davis, that is a total eyesore and blocks the California view, which, would be great. But, so hopefully that new stadium does happen. Been waiting for it for years and years and years. Whether or not it will remains to be seen.
Maybe they can go play in Vegas with the Raiders and do a dual stadium there.
Yeah, hard pass.
The Las Vegas A's.
The Las Vegas Athletics.
That's actually where their AAA team is right now. So, yeah.
Oh, see? Well, there's already a stadium.
Yeah.
Is it kind of bad if
and
you
they
make a proposal?
Draw essentially the amount of fans to fill a AAA stadium most of the time. So,
see?
Is it bad if you make a pitch to a community college and even a community college is like, no, we don't want, no, leave, get out of here, no, ew, gross, go back to the sewage stadium or whatever.
Yeah, that's basically what they said.
That is interesting that they're doing it with their own money and not a taxpayer funded stadium scheme, because it does seem like the kind of ownership that would
do a taxpayer
taxpayer stadium, or we're going to Vegas.
Right. That's to circle back to the points we were talking about earlier in the episode. That's the disappointing part about this, is because the ownership up until this current crisis had been awesome with community relations. Like their team president, Dave Cavil, is huge in that. He had been with the San Jose Earthquakes of the MLS and got their stadium built. And then the A's were like, hey, can you come do that for us? And he's been awesome. Everything I've seen from him from a public point of view has been terrific. He's very interactive with community, and they built up all this goodwill, and now they're kind of wrecking it with this current scandal of not paying their minor league players.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you both for being here. For those of you listening to the show as it drops on the Monday,
really ended that on a high note. You're welcome.
Draft week. Hey, it's a Tigers podcast, so we're used to kind of ending on that. Draft coverage. Those of you that want to watch and likely tweet along with many of us. I don't know, Luke. Do you watch the draft? Are you a draft watcher?
No.
Me neither. No.
I'll watch. I'll catch the highlights. I'll probably tune in for the first pick, but beyond that, I'll go, all right. And I probably won't even do that. I mean, I have the MLB network, but I probably won't tune in.
Well, Luke, you can also watch it on this little known network called ESPN, providing live coverage of the first round, 7 p.m. Eastern time on June 10th. They'll also be covering rounds 2 through 5 on MLB Network. Now we move over to ESPN 2, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern on June 11th. And then starting at 9 a.m. Eastern on June 14th, teams will be allowed to start signing undrafted players for a maximum of $20,000. That is obviously being covered by ESPN 8 to the Ocho. They'll just be at random players' houses, hoping that a Major League Baseball team shows up in the driveway and stays 6 feet away to maintain proper social distancing for the signing. But we will be talking about all of that action in the following episode. So tune in as we get all this draft news, and we will see everybody and hear everybody next week. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.